Hello, everybody, and thank you so much. Today, we are going to talk about the wealth of information. It hurts my knees. The wealth of information that you can find on www.GSCCCA.org, or as a closing attorney and named partner of Schaefer & Dean says, GSCCCA.org. This is a website for the state of Georgia, where it is a co-op. It actually stands for the Georgia Superior Clerk of Courts Co-op Association. That's a mouthful. And it is a co-op of various online counties where they put all of their deeds and tax records and warranty deed books and all of that information online. There is so much information on there. You as a real estate agent, would it be helpful to you, whether you are prospecting for business or whether you are helping a seller sell, to know the legal description, of course, to know what liens are attached to the property, of course. Perhaps they took out a down payment assistance program or something like that, and your sellers may not realize that that presents as a second mortgage. You can find that information out. Additionally, would it be helpful to know how much a person still owes on their mortgage? Where on earth could you find that information? Well, I would like to introduce to you closing attorney and named partner Doug Dean to show us all the tips and tricks and secrets of how to get that information from this program. Now, some of these services are paid services. If you are a Maximum One Realty agent, we provide this service for you we take on the cost. So we take on the cost. You do not have to pay for it. If you are watching this video, thank you so much, and you are an agent with another brokerage, you either need to pay for these services as an agent or you need to get with your broker regarding that. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Doug Dean and let him introduce himself a little bit further.
Thank you. I'm Doug Dean, the owner and managing partner at Schaefer & Dean, real estate law firm in Atlanta for over 15 years now, with 13 locations across Metro Atlanta, Douglasville to Gainesville, and 11 others in between. Our topic today is talking about the GSCCCA.org, which is a mouthful. I call it the GSCCCA.org. And what that is all deed records are maintained in each county by the clerk of superior court in that county. And years ago, the state legislature mandated that all the clerks of superior court of all of the counties would work together and have a cooperative website where you can view the clerk deed records for all of the 153 counties or 159 counties in Georgia. So it's a website with a wealth of information across all the counties in Georgia. Dana mentioned that it is a subscription-based service to the GSCCCA. And if you're a Maximum One agent, get with Dana or your broker, and they'll instruct you on how you can get a login and be able to access the system. And without further ado, I'm going to jump into it. Before I do, I will say, are there any alternatives to the GSCCCA? The answer is that the clerks of some counties also make their deed records available independently of the GSCCCA. Cobb County was one of the first to do that. And the nice thing about Cobb counties is they digitized all of their records for about 100 years. On Cobb County's own website, not in the GSCCCA, you can look at deeds going back nearly 100 years. The GSCCCA, because it started about 20 years ago, how far back you can go is limited by when each county started using the GSCCCA to share their deed records. The four that I know that have their own services are Douglas County, Cherokee County, Cobb County, and Forsyth County. The trick to finding those is when you look for Forsyth County Clerk of Superior Court deed records, you'll get a lot of paid sites. They look very official. Just the easiest thing is just call the Clerk of Superior Court and ask them, do you have a site other than the GSCCCA where I can access the deed images? And I'm going to get a list of those and supply them to Dana so she can add them at the end of the video. But I'm going to go ahead and log into the GSCCCA and show you a couple of neat tips and tricks that I think will benefit you well.
For those of us agents, I don't practice anymore, but when I was practicing, and many of you guys here also practiced, won't focus on both of us. We used to have to drive in our cars down to the courthouse, and the clerks of court were amazing because you go into the clerk and you actually pull out these big old huge books. I see some head nods. You had to pull out these big old huge books, look at the book number and the page number, and go to the actual clerk's office. So the fact that these are online, Doug, is really, some of these people have no clue, right?
I remember the dusty deed rooms. Those rooms full of books got very dusty, and you pull a book off and blow the dust off of it if no one's looked at it in a while.
I should have started. It's GSCCCA.org.
All right, thank you. There's a button at the top called Login.
Would it be easier for you to sit?
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and do that. You'll see a login button at the top. Now we're logged into the GSCCCA. Yes, I didn't close it. We're logged into the GSCCCA, but before we go to look something up, if you know your seller's name, you can go directly into the GSCCCA, but sometimes they're indexed maybe by middle initial, middle name. If you don't know exactly how the party's name is listed, another trick is to just Google. In this case, I'm going to Google the Douglas County, Georgia, the tax commissioner, and the tax record will tell me the name of the owner. I've gone to the Douglas County Tax Commissioner, and I'm going to property tax, and then I'm going to look up a tax bill. It's confusing because it says make a payment. I really don't want to make a payment, but in order to look up a record, it will prompt me as if I wanted to make a payment, and that's how it will look it up. I went to make a payment and selected property taxes, told it I wasn't a robot. And I'm going to look it up by property address. The address that I'm using here is 3671 Fowler, and you can leave off the street. Sometimes they abbreviate it differently. It's Ridge, which might be spelled out, or abbreviated RDG. So a tip is just use the number and the street without the suffix. If you put in the full suffix, you might miss one. And what it tells me is that the properties are currently billed to Tamara McDowell and previously to my wife and I. This is the gentleman we sold our home of 25 years to. So now that I know the owner, I can go back to the clerk's website. I can go to the search button, and I can tell it I want to search the real estate index by name. And then here I'll tell it I want all parties, whether he is what we call the grantor or the grantee. The grantor is the first one who, for example, signs a warranty deed, the seller, or the borrower on a loan. The grantee is the buyer of the property on a warranty deed or the lender on a security deed. So on all parties and all instruments, and I'm going to tell it, limit my search to Douglas County. And you'll notice it says enter last name, first name. So I'm putting in the owner's name, last name, first name. I'm going to tell it to give me all the results on one page, and I left the date blank, so it will give me all the records for all the time period that the county is good through. There is also a Tamara McDowell, but our owner was Tamara McDowell. And then what it tells me is there were 6 records with that name in Douglas County. Some of them are warranty deeds where the title of the property was transferred. Security deeds are loan deeds. And what it tells me, I'm always looking for a warranty deed to find the owner of the property. And this was the warranty deed. I hit the button there to pull up the entry. And this screen gives me the basic information that was used on the deed. The grantor was myself and Tammy. The grantee was the buyer, Tamara McDowell. Every time a warranty deed is recorded, you have to record what's called a PT-61. It's a transfer tax declaration. Every time you record a warranty deed, tax is payable at the rate of $1 per thousand of sales price. So pulling up the PT-61 will tell me all of the information about the sale, the seller's name, the buyer's name, and the sales price of the property. And if you're saying, gosh, are you being very free, sharing all your personal information? Remember that everything in the GSCCCA is public record, not private information. So this is all public information. You'll also see that it has map and parcel number. That's the tax map and parcel number and the sales price. So that's good to know that you can go to the PT-61 and pull that information. That was under PT-61. The next button to view the image is to pull up an actual copy of the warranty deed. There are some buttons here at the top that show you how to zoom in. You can zoom in on the deed by the width of the page or the height of the page, or you can zoom in or out with the plus and minuses. The arrows are to go page forward and page backward. So zooming in a little bit, it tells me this deed was recorded in book 3640, page 541 and 542 of the Douglas County deed records. The transfer tax of $284 tells me, without even looking at the PT-61, the sales price was $284,000 because the tax is $1 per thousand based on the sales price. And it says, see attached Exhibit A for the legal description. I can either use the next page here, or you can see the thumbnails to the left. I click on the thumbnail, and it gives me the legal description of this property. The land lot, district, section, lot, unit, block, the plat book page number. And for your purposes in preparing a contract, you could do one of three things. You can use this data to fill in the blocks in the GAR form to identify the property. You can also identify it by reciting that it's book 3640, page 541, 542 of the county records, or you could print out the deed and the legal description and attach it as Exhibit A. Any one of those three would be a good way to put the legal description of the property into your contract. I'm going to go back to the deed, and when I page forward, that was page forwarding through the thumbnails. Page forwarding here, right behind it was the security deed where he took out the first loan against the property when he bought the property. Now, this is the screen where you can actually view the image. I'm going to go back to the search results, and I'm going to use the back button to go back to our search results. You'll see first was the deed in October of 18 where he bought it, and the security deed in October 18 where he financed it. You'll see down below a cancellation in 2020, and you'll see that it references this book and page number, which is this security deed. What that tells me is this security deed has been canceled, and now he has a new security deed. So it looks like he refinanced the property in December of 2019. And that's this one has also been canceled. Each deed has a cross-reference. And down below in 2020 is there are the two cancellations for the first two security deeds. And here's the most recent security deed. This tells me that on August 18th, 2020, he did a refinance of the property and took out a loan, flipping through the pages. a loan of 280, 272. So the three things I've done so far is I've determined who owns the property, I've gotten a copy of the deed, and I've found the most recent security deed or loan deed against the property so that I know in 2020 he owed about 280,000. And you can use the tools available to you to determine what the current property value is, and you have a pretty good idea. If he's paid on it for 3 years, probably hasn't paid a lot down in principal, pretty good idea what the outstanding loan balance is. So just to recap, we got into the GSCCCA using the login that we obtained. We could either search directly for a party's name if we know it, or we can use the tax commissioner to look up an owner's name and get into the GSCCC that way. And then we looked through the deed records to determine the deed where he took title and the most recent loan deed. Now, one other thing we can do, if we go back to the search bar at the top, is there is a lien index. If I go to the lien index and search by name, once again, I'm going to select Douglas County, just like we did in the prior search, and I'm going to use the same name. And I'm going to tell it to give me all the results on one page. It tells me that there have been 6 liens filed. One of them, a fife, is a writ of fieri facias. It's a Latin term. It's synonymous with a lien, but Douglas County filed a tax lien, which appears has been canceled. Georgia Department of Revenue filed liens, which have now also been canceled. And I could look carefully at these to tell which release goes with it, each lien. So there was a tax lien that's been satisfied and 2 Department of Revenue liens that have been satisfied. So I don't see any liens currently of record.
It's just a little bigger. I should have done that. There we go.
Now, if you were to go to on a listing appointment for this property, 3671 Fowler Ridge, you now have an idea of how much the borrower owes. You have a copy of the deed where he took title to the property, and you've done a quick search to see if he had any liens against the property. When Linda Kennedy spoke earlier, she mentioned that sometimes people have a second mortgage they don't know about. They do a forbearance, and FHA records a second loan, or they had a Georgia Dream that is a second loan. And those would have appeared in that search criteria when we were searching the deeds. So we didn't see that he had any forbearance that has become a second lien or Georgia Dream. If it was, you'd know it because you would have found it here in the search screen. Now, I've thrown a lot of information at you so far. Do you have any questions about the data that's available to you in the GSCCCA or how to use it?
Is this the same search that you use when you're searching for the borrower and not the seller?
Yes, you can put in any name. So you can put as a matter of fact, let me go back to the search and show you.
So the question was, can you use this to help with a borrower as well as a seller?
And the answer is yes, under name search. Remember that I said I want all parties, whether they are a grantor or grantee. So if I had done an all-party search and I had put my own name in, it would pick up that deed where I was the seller. It would also pick up the loan deeds when I took out loans against the property. Another thing to be aware of is you'll see my legal name is Douglas, but I just put in Dean Doug. If I put in Dean Douglas, it will miss any deeds that were recorded as Doug Dean because the name won't match. So you can use shorter versions of a name just to make sure that you don't miss a name variation.
So is there a wild card like an asterisk, or just the abbreviated name will get anything above that including?
You don't have to use a wild card character. For example, this is Dean D in Douglas County, and I've said, give me 100 results. It's going to find every deed where the grantor or grantee had the last name of Dean and the first initial of D. And it shows that I had some in my name as Doug, Douglas, Douglas H, which was my middle initial. Douglas W was not me. I've never gone by that. So that's a different Douglas Dean. We did used to get each other's phone calls from time to time because we were both Doug Dean in Douglasville and Douglas County. So I actually got to know him just because we got each other's phone calls from time to time.
So Doug, as an agent, would you suggest that an agent use the abbreviated name and look up more than one? Because some deeds could have been recorded. Obviously, it's showing here, some are under the name of Doug Dean and some are under the name of Douglas Dean. So when you're doing research to help your public, you need to not just look at one name. And then what would you do if a person goes by their middle name?
Again, if you're looking for property that they own, use the tax commissioner and tax assessor. Now, the reason the county has two different departments, the tax assessor tracks ownership and property values, which they give to the tax commissioner. The tax commissioner is the one that bills and collects the taxes based on the millage rate that the county provides and based on the tax assessor data. So tax assessors determine ownership and property value. Tax commissioners send out tax bills based on the value, the owner, and the millage rate set by the county. So if you use tax assessor and tax commissioner data, you can find the actual name, how it appears in the records. Or, and in fact, in the assessor site, there's a section on prior sales where it will show you deed book and page numbers of prior deeds. If you're looking for property and you don't know exactly how it's titled, just work your way backwards. You saw me use Dean as the last name and first initial D. And if I still didn't find it, I could just take out the first initial, just look for all the Deans and find it in that manner. If I had it recorded under H Dean, my middle initial, instead of Doug. But that's a trick that you'll use as you're searching to try to find it if you don't find it under their first name, if it's under their middle name, middle initial, and so forth.
So you have to be a bit of a detective.
The nice thing is if you know what you're looking for example, using the tax commissioner data, I knew how to get into the to look it up by name. Yes?
Because forbearance is something that's been on the forefront of conversation lately, how would a lien for forbearance be in the system and the person that is against it?
In most cases, the question was, if there was a lien, say for a forbearance, and it was a lien filed by FHA or HUD, how would the homeowner know? And the answer is when they do a forbearance, the borrower signs documents and they should have a copy of it. A lot of times people may not understand the legal significance. They're saying you're behind and we're going to bring it current, but we didn't forgive that. We took it as a second loan against your property. And sometimes homeowners aren't aware of that. But if you're looking up their name in the GSCCCA, you'll see the deed where HUD FHA recorded it as a second lien against the property.
And that forbearance paper, do they sign it?
Typically, yes, there's a security deed that they sign that is recorded, that is for whatever the amount owing to FHA HUD.
But a lien and a security deed can be simultaneously on your report up under your name, correct?
That's right. And when you search for the name, it will show that list of warranty deeds, security deeds, cancellations, all the things that are indexed under that name.
Would you then things like mechanics liens show up there?
Yes, they would. If you did where we were under lien search and did a name search, If you searched for a name that someone had filed a mechanics lien, it would appear here in the lien search as well.
Don't you have to re-enter that or resubscribe that mechanically every 6 years for it to be valid? Am I correct?
I have and I could do it next month. I have a whole presentation on liens and so forth. There are a lot of particular rules. What I want you to be able to do today with the GSCCCA is to find them. Once you find them, if you said, tell me about a mechanics lien, I'll tell you that someone who's worked on the property will file it within 90 days of providing work or materials. And it's just a claim that I have provided work or materials and not been paid. That lien will last for just 12 months. Within 12 months, the materialman lien has to either be paid or have to sue to perfect their lien. So they actually have to file suit within the 12 months. And if the homeowner disputes the lien, they can sue earlier and basically cut it off and say, let's get this resolved. I'm going to sell my property and I don't want a materialman's lien. So they can basically contest the materialman's lien, and rather than wait 12 months to see whether or not the mechanic files suit to perfect his lien.
Doug, would some of these, and we'll do a longer presentation on this next month's sales meeting, but would some of these be able to be addressed at the closing table?
Some of the,
And like, let's say there is a seller who has a mechanics lien that has not been perfected, so it's within the 12 months. Could the seller at the closing table file what you just said and go about and continue to sell the property without the lien?
it's a slightly different process. If the seller wants to contest the lien, there's a process called bonding off a mechanics lien, where they would basically post a bond with the clerk of court for 1.5 times the face amount of the lien. And now the lien's no longer attached to the property. The homeowner and the mechanic can sort it out in court, and whoever wins will get the money from. So there is a process to bond off a lien. The other thing to know is, one nice thing about real estate is every problem in real estate is fixable if we get the right piece of paper or pay the right amount of money. If we have a deed that was improperly executed, great, let's get a new deed executed. If we have a mechanics lien, it can go away if we pay him off. So most every problem in real estate can be fixed by paying the right amount of money or getting the right deed to make the problem go away. That's why I tell my brother, who's a doctor, that my job is easier than his, because it's easier for me to fix mistakes.
The seller can put 1.5 times the amount with the courts.
There's a process to go through, but essentially it's posting a bond for 1.5 times the face amount of the lien. And the seller doesn't have to put that money up directly. They essentially borrow it from a bonding company, if you will. They put a portion of it and the bonding company posts a bond for it.
But that would give the buyer clean title.
Correct, because the lien goes away once we've bonded it off.
That's usually something you catch before closing.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the first step in preparing for closing is we have title examiners that do this for us. They run the title exam. They tell us what's on title, what security deeds, what liens, and we reach out to the seller and tell them what we found, and we need their help to get payoffs for security deeds or payoffs for mechanics liens.
Before I go away, any other questions of how to use GSCCCA or what to find information? Because we can go back to that.
And give us the login.
So we're recording this, so I'm not going to give the login to any and everybody watching this YouTube video. But after we stop recording, I will give it. And I will also say that the subscription, we pay for the subscription, and even if you pay for your own subscription to use it, there is a separate printing fee if you want to print from that. At maximum one, we do not pay your printing charges of those. You guys can screenshot it.
That's right.
But if you actually, we pay for the subscription for you to have access to all of these records. If you guys actually print, we're going to put that on your agent bill. You have to pay for the printing charges, but there's a lot of ways to get that information, like I said, with screenshots and so forth and so on. And as Doug mentioned, some of the counties that have their own online records, it will help you figure out exactly where to go to some of that other county to print from there.
What if you print it as a PDF?
If you print it as a PDF,
If you use the print button from within the software knows that you've printed it, even if you don't print to paper. So the GSCCCA bills 50 cents a page for each page printed.
yeah. So you guys just take a screenshot with your phone or however you do, print home screen.
It sounds like a lot, but if you went to the courthouse and used the paper records, that would be the copy fee using the copiers in the clerk room. It's 50 cents a page to make a copy, but it sure is a lot more convenient to doing electronically. One more thing that I did want to show you, because we talked about the deed records and we talked about the lien records, is you can get an image of it, and once you have the image, you can share it. What I wanted to show you is in the legal description, it references that this property is defined in Plat Book 19, page 243, and one other search function within the GSCCCA is a plat index. So I can tell it I want to look for a plat in Douglas County that is 19-243, book 19, and page 243. And what I'll actually get is a plat of the Chapel Hills subdivision in Douglasville, Unit 1, Phase 2, Section 2. There's Fowler Ridge, there's Lot 19, and somewhere there in small print, let me zoom in a little bit. It tells me that that is Lot 19 is 3671 Fowler Ridge, and there are the dimensions of the lot: 187, 185 feet on the sides, 105 feet front and rear. So now I've got the actual plat of the neighborhood with the dimensions of the lot.
Great.
All of my loan officers is that good class. It's amazing.
There is so much data available to the GSCCCA, and I do have an expression that everything is easy once you know how. This isn't particularly difficult. There are a few steps to learn, but it's not particularly challenging. You just learn a few. It's easy once you know how to do it. And once you know how, it's a tool you'll be able. I've used these tools for 20 years now, since I first learned the GSCCCA in 2003 when I started practicing as a real estate attorney. And it's a skill I still use every day. And lastly, if you do need help, you have all of my contact information available to you. And please feel free to reach out, and I'll be glad to try and walk you through it and assist you with it.
Why don't you give your email on the recording? You can just say it and I'll type it in.
Sure. It's Doug Dean with Shea Fritz and Dean. The email is my first initial last name. So it's DDEAN at Shea Fritz, which is spelled like Sam, Harry, Albert, Fred, and then like the Ritz Hotel, RITZ dash Dean, DEAN.com. ddean at shayfritz-dean.com. I always like to end with the wit and wisdom of Kenny Rogers and his song, The Gambler, when he said, I hope you found an ace that you can keep. So I hope you've got some good information today.
Recording closed.
Are we still recording?
Yeah, I can record it now. I can.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me, and know that we're here to help you and look forward to seeing you at the closing table.
So thank you guys so much for watching Dana Sparks, broker of a Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors. And I want to thank our guest presenter, Doug Dean of Schaefertz and Dean. I will link his contact information below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye. If you like that video, check out the one here. If you like the content on this entire channel, please click here to subscribe. I try to take even the most complicated of real estate situations and make them crystal clear. See what I did there? Real estate made crystal clear. Thank you guys so much for watching.